it seems like a great idea. I mean, there's so much attention to the mechanics of it, to the how flamboyant it can be, and say, well, you know what it can do. The very first production, it can come in real close. It can get real intimate. It can be a totally different expectation.
Right. Well, and the mechanics of the Wyly, which are so impressive and I'm in love with, but to be clear, they're not mechanics that are designed for an audience. They're not mechanics that an audience will ever see. And without stop-motion photography, and that film does exist and is available, but without that, nobody can really see it, because it's not mechanics meant for production. It's not like a Las Vegas theater where a giant water tank comes out of the ground and people swim around it. I mean, that's not, the building doesn't have those capabilities at all.
Right.
What the technical capabilities of the building have that are so stunningly amazing is that all of the floor and the vast amount of the ceiling and all of the structure is removable and reconfigurable. That there's no theater in America that can do. That is very, very unique. But there would never be a play that is similar to the fact that the massive scoreboard at American Airlines Center can be removed, a basketball court can be turned into an ice rink, and all of that can be changed over into seating all over the place for a rock concert. Now, we take that for granted at American Airlines. I mean, you could go to see the Stars and the Mavs play a game on the same day. A couple of times a year they do that. We don't think about that at all. And certainly watching the Stars or the Mavericks, you're not remotely, I mean, you might consciously think, oh, below that basketball court is ice, and oh, in the concert, somehow they get that massive scoreboard to be out for Miley Cyrus, but in for the game. But it doesn't, it's not, you don't ever see that changeover happening. You know what I mean? Like, the thrill to the audience is not the installation of ice or the installation of a basketball court.
Right.
The thrill to the audience is the game. But what that allows them to do at American Airlines is to hold in one building, in one neighborhood, in one, with one structure. It allows the space to meet the needs of both of those two very different sports, and then Miley Cyrus. You know what I mean? Like all in a 3-day period.
Right.
That's what we have the ability to do here. Is unlike the Kalita Humphreys Theater or Fair Park or the Winsphere or any other theater in all of Dallas, where pretty much the space is the space. Like the Kalita is a great space, but the audience and the stage are always in the same place.
Right.
So when we want to do a musical, there's nowhere to put an orchestra. There is no space. You can't put an orchestra pit in there, nor is there any space backstage to put them. It's just not possible.
Right.
So we couldn't do a major musical with an orchestra. We'd have to do a rock musical like Tommy with a rock band on the stage.
Right.
Here, for Midsummer, we said we want the audience to be on all sides. But when we do our next show, a musical, Give It Up, or later this season, It's a Bird, It's playing Superman. For Superman, we don't want singing and dancing right there, and where would you put the band? What we want is the audience facing the stage. We want an orchestra pit. We want the ability to put a frame around that stage, to have scenery fly. Now, there's nothing special about what I'm saying, scenery flying, Superman flying. I mean, we've seen that at Fair Park or at the Majestic or at Dallas Children's Theater. They have a lot of those capabilities. What's different is that in none of those spaces could you say, and for our next place, we want to be in the round or we want to be in a thrust.
Right.
The design at those theaters, at every Broadway theater in America, the design has to fit in a box, and the audience has to sit outside of the box, and that never changes. Just like the Nasher never changes, the box of the Nasher, as it were, is always the same, and the art somehow has to fit into that. And that's a hell of a box they got over there at the Nasher. Just like the box at the Winsphere, as it were, the audience on the stage is really great, or at Fair Park. But there's no way to say, well, we want to make that different or more. You'd have to build another building.
Right.
Which is what the major theaters in America, the Alley Theater in Houston, for instance, has exactly that. Inside of their theater building, they have two separate stages in two separate spaces in order to do that. And that still only means they can only do two things. They can put the audience all the way around in their small space, or on three sides in their big space. But at the Alley Theater, they can't put an audience facing straight at the stage with an orchestra pit. And if they want to do that, they have to build another theater.
Yeah.
Whereas we have the ability to do all of that in one theater. So the sexy thing for the audience is actually that the show is going to engage them in the way appropriate. The sexy thing for audience is not watching it change.